URC run number 3, folks. Good round for the South African teams, with all sides coming away with a win, barring Ulster's result. Not bad for the Irish as well. Kind of a bad week for the Italians, and the Welsh sides come away with no wins as well, although 2 of their games went right down to the wire. We'll go through the games pretty quick with a wrap-up of the week that was. Some of the key standout moments, and you guys can let us know your thoughts on how this week's games went. The first couple of games, the Friday games, Scarlets and Connacht, and Cardiff and Glasgow, I kind of watched these the wrong way round. It was my birthday. I was doing a live stream. I started off watching the Glasgow game against high-flying Cardiff, and I watched the first half. Glasgow were absolutely hammering the Cardiff boys. It was a massive lead. There were tries to Dobby, Rowe, Jordan, Tuipulotu, Jones. I mean, the Cardiff guys were missing tackles for days. And then I switched off and switched over to Scarlets and Connacht, because that was seemingly the better watch. But then the games kind of shifted in momentum as I switched over. So I kind of had bad luck with that. But I mean, both games end up pretty entertaining. Like Glasgow, as I mentioned, seemed to have this one sewn up, and then Cardiff come roaring back. They get tries through Thomas, Winnett, Byrne, Martin, and Donald. I mean, the Thomas try, which was like a push on Dobby as he's going for a box kick on his own goal line, drops the ball cold because the air swings with his foot because he's being pushed, and then Thomas is able to just stop it down. That's crazy. I've never seen anything quite like that. You still see new stuff, but I mean, for the Glasgow guys, I mean, Tuipulotu was absolutely on fire. Jordan was just running a riot. He got a intercept try where he literally kind of stumbled and still had the gas to kind of go half the field and score. He ends up with 2 tries. There were dummies, there were steps. It was really, really crazy game. I mean, Cardiff at least get a 4-try bonus point on this one. At one point they were challenging to get back into the game. They might have liked at least a losing bonus point, but Glasgow at the end just scored too many tries. I think only 1 maul try this week for Glasgow. So it makes a bit of a change with all these backs getting the tries, like Kyle Rowe with the footballing skills. Yeah, proper crazy stuff. 52-36. That is a high-scoring affair in front of, I think, 6,000 people there at the Arms Park. So, yeah, not a bad way to start the URC week. Glasgow's record now 2-1. Cardiff likewise 2-1. That's their first defeat of the campaign. And then Scarlets and Connacht, like I mentioned, I didn't watch the first half. I watched the second half, which was probably not the half to watch. The half to watch was the first half. Gareth Davis got a couple of tries for the Scarlets. They kept the scoreboard ticking over with some penalties, particularly Owen Lloyd. But Connacht tries through O'Connor, which was a bit of a gift from the Scarlets guys. Hansen got one from a cross kick, and then Murphy got one as well, like length of the field stuff. But yeah, all the tries coming in the first half. The second half, basically an exchange of penalties. Scarlets get themselves in the lead on the back of a few penalties. Take the lead on 74 minutes, only for Connacht to take it back on 77. The Scarlets boys will feel, I don't want to say hard done by, but it's just like it's rough. It's rough when you lose it at the death as a fan. To see your team get that close just to look like they're about to win it and just to end up losing it. It's brutal. So the Scarlets boys still winless. They've got a draw and 2 losses thus far. Connacht, 2-1 record. I mean, stats-wise, the Connacht guys dominated the territory, 62-38 in that game. Plumtree, though, won a couple of turnovers for the Scarlets. Scarlets actually had the better of the turnovers with 4-2. Hansen had 72 run meters for the Connacht guys. For the Saturday games, goodness me, the Lions up against Edinburgh. What is going on with Edinburgh? These guys were down 48 points to 0 at halftime. They win the second half. That's at least something, but goodness gracious me, that is quite extraordinary. Edinburgh winless thus far in their campaign. The Lions have started pretty brilliantly with 2 from 2. The tries, Kewenhorn gets 1, Frankie Horn gets 1, McMahon gets 3, Van der Merwe gets 2, Jonk gets 1. It's a proper try-fest. The Edinburgh guys get Gilchrist, Harrison, and Muncaster over the line in the second half to win the second half. But man, if you're down 48 points to 0, and some of the tries, man, there were offloads, there was kind of coast-to-coast stuff, there were kicks through, kick returns. They were scoring any which way they could. It was quite incredible. They finished with 12 clean breaks to 2, which is nuts. Run meters 496 to 280. The tackling percentage 88 for the Lions, 75 for Edinburgh. That's defensively poor. Kewan Horn, 8 defenders beaten. Like, I mean, Jared Cairns, the number 7 for the Lions, had 19 tackles, which is pretty impressive. Magnus Bradbury wins a couple of turnovers, but honestly, whoop-de-doo, when you get beaten 55-21, maybe they could have got a fourth try. That's the only thing you could say about that end performance. They could have got a point out of it, but ended up coming away with nothing. Their campaign has had about as bad a start as you could have done. But, yeah, the Lions, they like entertaining, don't they? They've been, I think, for a couple of years now, right up there with one of the most entertaining teams to watch in the URC. Also, a pretty high-scoring one with the Bulls and Ulster, 47-21. Also, quite a few tries run in, but a little bit less like lopsided in terms of one half. The Bulls kept their try scoring pretty consistent across both halves. Kurtley Arons got one with some great footwork. There was a cross kick for Creel, which got one. CARvGLA got one from a maul, so proper variety in the Bulls tries. Moody got one. Honeycomb got one. Chamberlain got one. Nice dummy. Lowe got one kind of towards the death, so certainly bonus point and then some for the Bulls in terms of their try scoring. Stockdale got one from a nice cross kick from Aidan Morgan, chip and regather, a bit of power and pace from Stockdale, which was a bit of a blast from the past. Carson got one with a bit of power as well, and then Moore got one at the end. But like Edinburgh, 3 tries is good enough for a grand total of nothing in terms of what they come away from in this game. Bulls 7 turnovers to the Ulster boys 3 is also pretty damning. Likewise, the tackle rate for Ulster is not much better than Edinburgh. They finished at 76%. The Bulls 82 is not great, but 76 is a lot worse. Elric Lowe and Nokia had 14 tackles for the Bulls, so that's a pretty good defensive effort from those guys. Stockdale beat 7 defenders. He's the top guy in that match for getting that kind of go forward, but yeah, not Ulster's finest hour, that has to be said, and both the teams in that neck of the woods, the Lions and the Bulls, absolutely piling on some points early on in this URC season. I always see comments on the highlights of those games about there being no fans there, but both of those grounds, people sit on the side away from the sun. So there's fans there. They just don't want to sit in the baking sunlight all day, seemingly. I haven't seen the final numbers for this most recent round out, but yeah, in big stadiums when there's nobody sitting in the sun, it does look worse on the camera than it could do. Dragons and Sharks finishes 33-30, and this is what I'm talking about kind of like the Scarlets guys. The Dragons, they will rue not winning this one, man. They lost this after the clock was in the red. There was like an 84th minute try for the Sharks, which gets their campaign underway. I mean, the Dragons kind of punished the Sharks' discipline at times. The Sharks had a couple of yellow cards in this game. Basham got one, Coleman got one. They got kind of a couple of close range ones. Rodri Williams got one, which was maybe their most attractive one, like a big burst down the left wing and a good support line. And then Carter got one in the 54th minute. So 4 tries from the Dragons boys, plus a losing bonus point for finishing within the 7. But honestly, it'll feel like a loss with how they couldn't quite hang on at the death. Chituka, Hendricksa, Julius tries for the Sharks. Hooker, who is a winger, is always a kind of a little bit of a mind melder. And then Mbatha at the end, 84 minutes after 20 phases. Quite unbelievable stuff for the Sharks to pull that one out of the fire because, yeah, it was looking like kind of maybe all over. Andre Esterhazen with a couple of try assists in this one as well. He's certainly looking a pretty good acquisition. But yeah, the Sharks dominated the possession. They dominated the possession. Did I say possession twice? Possession and territory, 55% and 60%. And the goal kicking for the Dragons, 4 from 8 in a game like that, looks pretty costly, whereas the Sharks were 4 from 5. So yeah, 2 points for the Dragons, but as I mentioned, it'll kind of feel like a loss. And for the Sharks, hopefully once they get some of their Bok boys back, they will actually be able to take it again to another level. But they've still got a pretty talented squad, so I don't know. Bonus point win on the road. It's kind of hard to turn your nose up at that kind of result. Similar one for Leinster, because like when Leinster's lineup was named this week, it was like people were asking me, Mark, have you seen the Leinster lineup? Oh my gosh, it's basically like the Ireland team. They're going to put goodness knows how many points on Benetton. Well, they won 35-5, which is a 4-try win. You know, it's a bonus point win. So again, what do you say about that? Do you turn your nose up at that one? Or do you say this side chock full of Irish internationals should be beating a Benetton side who've been disappointing this season by more than 35-5, especially when they had their first try after 9 minutes, a penalty try from a maul. Frawley went over a couple of minutes later. Conan went over before 20 minutes. And then the bonus point try for Doris on 25 minutes. They don't score again until a couple of minutes before full time. So, I don't know. I feel like with Leinster, it's always a hard one because the measure is set so high for Leinster that if they don't obliterate teams, they get criticised. But yeah, there's a big dry patch there. I know Ross Byrne's coming for a bit of stick about not directing the team around the paddock as well as Frawley does when he's at 10, coming off the bench. But yeah, Benetton score in the second half through Manfredi. A maul try against 14 men once Baird went into the bin. But yeah, good to see Achias Neyman playing back. That's a bit of good news for both South African and Leinster fans because he's been out for such a long time. Again, it's a team with their tackling percentage, which is low, which ends up getting beaten. 73% for Benetton is never going to get it done. The Leinster boys are at 87, which is pretty respectable, but the penalty count will be frustrating. 14 penalties conceded to Benetton's 6. Yeah, they kicked a fair bit of ball. Leinster as well, one of the few teams to actually crack 30-plus kicks in a game with 31 this week. Doris had 59 metres and beat 7 defenders. He is still as kind of that rampaging big player. Josh van der Fleer led the tackle count for the Leinster guys, which is kind of unsurprising. Odogwu beat 4 defenders and had 53 metres for Benetton, but yeah, in kind of a losing effort for them. Zebre and the Stormers I watched in full. I did a full match review, but it was ugly. I don't know, I want to say it was the worst game to watch this week, but geez, it was ugly at times. The first half in particular, there was not a lot to write home about. There was a lot of handling errors, and Zebre's scrum just kept getting obliterated. They scored a couple of tries through Zas in this game, one at the end of the first half, and then one kind of in the final 10 minutes. Hudsenberg and David's got the others. So it's a bonus point win for the Stormers. But yeah, she was an ugly one. Damien Willems has said at the end of the game that they showed glimpses, and he's very much correct because a lot of the game was guys dropping the ball. Zebre in particular, they would drop the ball, give away a scrum. Scrum would give away a penalty. Stormers would miss touch. It was at times just a bit very kind of early season stuff from both these sides, I suppose. I mean, Stormers had 60% possession, 55% territory, beat 26 defenders to 4. Had to make 51 tackles to 122 for Zebre, and yet, it's only a bonus point secured kind of right in the final 10 minutes when they scored 2 tries. So, yeah, still improvement to come from the Stormers, you would say, and Zebre sadly unable to back up after their big shift against Munster last week. And then the final one, Munster against the Ospreys. Munster in the driving rain, unbelievable weather. Maybe very believable for you guys who live in that neck of the woods, but 23-0. The territory stats tell a story about the weather. First half, Munster has 73% territory. I guess with the wind at their back, because second half, Munster has 24% territory. The Ospreys have got 76. So possession finish is 50-50. But yeah, with that driving rain, that driving wind, it's a kind of hard one to get out of your own half when you're kind of running into a gale, basically. But the Ospreys unable to get any points on the board. The only team to be nilled this week. I mean, 10 seconds in, they were behind after mucking up the restart again in pretty tough conditions. McCarthy got the first one. What can I think it was? He dropped that one. Farrell got one from a maul on 26 minutes. Nash got one just before halftime. Casey with the wide pass for the assist. And then O'Donoghue on 63 minutes secures the bonus point for Munster. So it's a good bounce back for them. Some of their big guns stand up. Tyke Byrne wins 3 turnovers in that one. Tom Farrell has 6 defenders beaten. I mean, Jack Morgan for the Ospreys has 20 tackles. Anytime you get in a 20-plus tackle game, it's a good effort. But like 7 turnovers to 1. And again, 3 of those are from Tyke Byrne. One of the key difference makers in these sides. And Munster just quite capable, especially in that first half when they had all the territory, able to keep the scoreboard ticking over, whereas the Ospreys, not so much. So that's round 3. Leinster at the top with Glasgow, Munster and Connacht. So 3 of the top 4 teams are the Irish sides. Remembering the South African sides are all 1 game behind. Cardiff are there in 5th, Lions 6th, Bulls 7th and the Sharks 8th. So that's your playoff spots. Benetton Edinburgh and the Scarlets are your winless sides thus far. Next week, Glasgow against Zebre. One would assume Glasgow will be pretty heavy favourites for that one. At home, Cardiff against the Scarlets will be a pretty fascinating one, an all-Welsh affair. Benetton against the Sharks. I mean, Benetton's not been playing cracking rugby thus far, but then again, the Sharks have been a little bit Jekyll and Hyde even within their own games. Edinburgh against the Stormers. Edinburgh could really use a good performance on their way back from South Africa. Leinster against Munster is potentially the game of the week just because of how intense that rivalry is. Ospreys against the Bulls will be an interesting one because the Bulls tend to be one of those ones where they're a very different side away from home than when they're in Pretoria. Ulster against Connacht. Yeah, Ulster on their way back from South Africa, and Connacht, coming back from Wales, but yeah, that one also I think could be pretty close. And then the Dragons against the Lions. Likewise, we'll see what kind of team the Lions are when they are on the road. You guys listening, thoughts on the round? If you're in the States and want to watch the URC, it is on Flow Rugby, so I'll put a link down to Flow in the description. They've got this plus the top 14 other rugby as well. Check it out. You guys take care, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. Ta-ra.